Have you ever gotten food spit in your face? If you haven't, you probably haven't raised an animal. And what I'm referring to by animals is my children. That's how I refer to them. I'm totally kidding, but seriously, they better be taking care of my old ass when I'm brittle and just useless, because my toddler just did that to me the other day. And it wasn't even like slightly chewed food. It was like almost like pretty much digested. This dude may be part llama because it felt like he brought the food up from his esophagus and then decided to spit it in my face. Anyways, I'm getting completely off track. You know how these intros go. I'm sorry if I ruined your lunch or your dinner. Anyways, let's get straight into today's video. I actually wanted to do something that I've been wanting to do now for quite some time, and that is take one more look at some of the upcoming Beast Kingdom action figures. Now, granted, some of these are either already being released or some other retailers I think may already have them in hand. However, as of the moment of this recording, most of these are up for pre-order on Beast Kingdom. They're not technically available just yet, so if you guys are interested, definitely keep an eye on the Beast Kingdom website. Although honestly, I'm not sure exactly why it is that Beast Kingdom's shipping is so expensive, along with the fact that some of these figures are very expensive in and of themselves. I would probably go to their official Amazon shop or their Amazon store. You can actually get better deals. I've seen some of the figures available there for like $40 to $50 that usually could go for as much as like $60 to $70 on their own website. Not to mention, you'll get even better deals on stuff that's already in stock, and this happens pretty consistently. I'm going to assume that they probably ship out like pallets worth of these figures and just keep them there at an Amazon warehouse, and you know, because of the bulk shipping, they're able to save a little bit of money, and that's why they're so affordable through their Amazon website. Now make sure to, you know, check their official store, because I think there might be some other like third-party sellers, but buy directly from the Beast Kingdom Amazon shop and you'll usually get some great deals when it comes down to those figures. As I said, you can find some of these for as cheap as like $40 to $50, which I think is like the lower end of these premium action figures. Now, without further ado, let's take a look at some of these. The first one that I wanted to showcase was this Danny DeVito Penguin action figure. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Danny DeVito will always be my Penguin. I know Colin Farrell did a phenomenal job in the Max show as well as the newest Batman film, but I just love Danny DeVito as Penguin. He went all out. It was a really dirty and grindy movie, but this is exactly what we want. This is one of those figures that doesn't need to have like an insane amount of articulation. I don't need to get him into some crazy poses. Just give me a basic Danny DeVito action figure and I'll be happy. I will say the price point is a little bit high through their website. I'm not sure if he's more affordable through other avenues. I think I've seen him for as low as like $60 to $70, which honestly is a little bit up there. But from my understanding, the jacket that he's wearing or the trench coat is supposed to be soft goods, which is not something that you usually get from any other OM. I think McFarlane is actually releasing this exact same figure for his line, but this one comes with just some extra accessories. It comes with a bucket, it comes with a little penguin, some extra hands, an umbrella, a fish accessory, as well as what I already mentioned, the coat for Penguin, which, you know, is soft. It looks to be like a premium style accessory for an action figure. Now, I will say in the description, they mentioned something about the hair and how it's supposed to be like realistically inserted into the head sculpt. I'm not sure if they're saying that this is going to be like a soft fabric or a soft material that looks like hair. That would be absolutely mind-blowing if they use like replica hair to add to the figure. I think that would just take it to a completely different level and it would make the figure look so much more realistic. So I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that just because I don't have any experience with the Beast Kingdom action figure. All I will say, if you guys are interested in like an upscaled version of Danny DeVito's Penguin, because as I said, McFarlane is already giving us his version, this is the perfect opportunity for you to pick this up. Now, I should clarify, these figures are a little bit bigger than the McFarlane universe, but I've often said, and especially in my personal case where I have an IKEA glass Detolf display case, every little square is kind of its own thing. So I could just do like a little square of Marvel Legends action figures. The second square could be, you know, maybe a little small McFarlane display, and then I could have some of these Beast Kingdom action figures in there without mixing them, right? It just depends on your display. Some people might have shelves, and so everything is kind of mixed in there. So it's a matter of personal perspective. I feel like if I did jump into this line, I would probably have to pick up like a small little display and kind of have it be its own thing rather than trying to mix them in with my DC Multiverse display. So it's just a matter of personal perspective. As I said, I've just had my eye on this line. They've been apparently doing some really good work, and so just wanted to showcase and show some love to some of these action figures. Next up, they do have a Batman based on the Dark Knight film from the Christopher Nolan trilogy, which obviously featured Christian Bale as Batman. And I have to say, just based on the promotional images, the amount of detail, the amount of work that they put into the actual body mold is absolutely insane. Now, from my understanding, Beast Kingdom just recently, and I'm talking about maybe like a year or so ago, started doing the pinless technology where you don't have those giant holes where you can see the articulation points, which is something that when they started, they did have. So it's kind of cool. It's interesting. This is definitely one of the better offerings, I think, out there. Now, there is a 1/12 scale in art action figure that is based on the exact same source material as the Dark Knight with, Christian Bale as Batman. And I believe if you guys are interested in like a proper 1/12 scale Batman that is maybe like the best one out there, that would probably be a better option. I've heard some absolutely phenomenal reviews about that figure, but I've also heard great things about this particular action figure. Some people already have some early samples of this particular figure. It comes with 6 total hands. It comes with a little grapple gun as well as a couple of his little golden batarang accessory pieces. If I'm not mistaken, it's also going to come with a wired cloth cape. And as I mentioned prior, just the body sculpt here, the amount of effort that they put into the smaller little details when it comes down to the suit itself, it's just spectacular. It does seem to be kind of like, again, as I mentioned, an upgrade over the McFarlane Dark Knight Batman. It's not a knock on McFarlane. It's just, it's a smaller action figure as well as, a much smaller price point. And so you can definitely see where that extra money is going, right? If the McFarlane Dark Knight Batman is going for, I don't know, let's say, $25 to $30, this figure is going to go for about $50, but it's bigger. It definitely has way more sculpted detail all around the body mold, and then comes with, a few extra accessories here and there. So like I said, it's just a matter of personal perspective. What are you most interested in, and what do you value the most? But this figure, as I said, looks absolutely phenomenal as well. And then they also have the 1989 Michael Keaton Batman up for sale or up for pre-order. This one also comes with a decent amount of accessories, 6 hands total. It comes with a grapple hook as well as a batarang, and similar to the Nolan Batman, this one would also come with one of those like premium cloth wired capes. And the figure does display incredibly well. I will say the detail on the body mold or the entire suit isn't as like intricate as the Dark Knight version. I'm just going to assume it's because it's different source material. This one seems to have quite a bit of texturing and detail, but not quite to the degree that the Nolan one has. So I think it's more about the source material rather than the actual figure itself. But both of them are definitely great offerings, and I definitely suggest you guys at least give some of the listings or some of the promotional images a quick little run through. Now, I'm not going to go all McFarlane on you guys and just bombard you with nothing but Batman action figures. We'll take a look at one more Batman action figure, and then I actually wanted to switch it up and talk about some other action figures here, or some other franchises that they actually work on, which I think are pretty interesting. We are looking at the Ben Affleck Justice League Batman action figure, and I will say, I'm not going to go into a gigantic rant, but I actually kind of enjoyed Ben Affleck as Batman. He's not like my prototypical vision of Batman, but I actually think he did a pretty good job. I actually genuinely enjoyed Batman versus Superman Dawn of Justice. Justice League I couldn't sit through. I think it was, mostly absolute garbage. I think the Snyder version was a little bit better, but it wasn't like a huge upgrade over the original. Regardless, I really like the look. I really like the design here. The likeness is actually pretty spot on. You can definitely see the gigantic butt chin that he has going on. That is clearly Ben Affleck in that bat suit. He has 6 hands total, a grapple hook, a rope accessory, and a batarang. Now, I did mention this in a previous video, but I think it's worth reiterating. I don't believe that any of their Batman action figures have butterfly joints or any crazy articulation like that. I think the articulation points are close to what McFarlane does, or most of, you know, like the mainline action figures that usually have like, you know, 20 to 24 to 25 points of articulation. So I don't think they're, you know, like a huge difference, but the butterfly joints not being there, that's definitely a point of emphasis, at least in my personal opinion. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind that these are like suited characters. Even the actual actors had a lot of trouble like being mobile and moving around in some of these suits, especially like back in the day with Michael Keaton. And even the Nolan universe did have some pretty hefty suits that were just very difficult to get around in. So I definitely understand somewhat the lack of articulation here with some of the Batman action figures. Not to say that they can get into some pretty intricate poses. You can actually see some of the promotional images, and they do a pretty good job of actually like articulating and getting into some poses, just nothing too dynamic, nothing too crazy, which I think is somewhat accurate to the original source material for each of these Batman action figures. But as I promised earlier, I wasn't going to get McFarlane on you. I wasn't just going to flood you with a bunch of Batman action figures. Let's switch it up here. Let's take a look at probably one of my all-time favorite characters from one of my favorite film franchises. We're looking at Gandalf the Grey here from Lord of the Rings. He comes with his hat, 9 different hands here, the sword, a sheath, and a satchel, and it appears that everything on him, you know, his entire outfit, his entire robe is supposed to be like actual cloth goods. It's very intricate. There's a lot going on with this particular figure. Now, I did notice that compared to some of the Batman action figures that we were looking at that are usually going for about like 40 to 50, you know, even closer to $60, depending on what retailer you're looking at, I think Gandalf is going to be a little bit more on the pricier side. I'm not sure if because they're actually using like realistic fabric, or if maybe the hair and the beard maybe is adding a little bit to the price point. It is worth mentioning that in the description of this particular figure, it did mention something very similar to the Penguin Danny DeVito action figure, where they mention the hair and the beard being like a realistic addition to the figure. I'm not sure exactly what that means, and I don't know exactly how they're inserting the hair as well as the beard onto the figure, but it's a really cool, nice touch. I don't think we usually see this at that particular price point. Usually if you're getting a Gandalf with this amount of accessories and this amount of detail, usually you're paying closer to like import prices, which is like 150 around there. We just saw like the General Grievous SH Figuarts action figure, and I think I've seen them from anywhere between the price points of like 120 to 150. So that's usually what you would pay for a figure with that amount of intricate detail. So with Gandalf, the price point, as I said, depends on where you're buying it from, but it's a little bit cheaper than some of those imported SH Figuarts figures. But this looks absolutely brilliant. I love this figure. As I said, I did grow up watching the Lord of the Rings series, and it's really nice to see manufacturers actually giving the franchise a little bit of love here. And then lastly, I did want to show a little bit of love to this Buzz Lightyear action figure. As I said, they actually work on a few different licenses, and I believe they have a license with Disney. They have a few other characters, whether it's like Stitch or Woody, but I love the way that this Buzz Lightyear action figure looks. It's based on the Toy Story franchise and not the animated Buzz Lightyear action figure that only featured Buzz. But this one I absolutely love. It comes with removable wings, 6 hands total, as well as 3 different face plates. Now, I didn't quite understand, and again, because I don't collect this line or I haven't picked up any of these figures, it is worth mentioning that I believe the eyes articulate or open and close, which is, again, something neat, a cool feature that I don't think I've ever seen from another OM. And they're kind of pushing the boundaries of what you would usually get with a figure like this. I think it looks really well designed. It looks really well sculpted. As I said prior, I think the articulation may be a little bit lacking. The design of the character obviously isn't going to lend itself for crazy articulation. There's no butterfly joints. Maybe the knees only have like single jointed knees and the cuts aren't deep enough. So the articulation isn't going to be there, but same thing as I said with the Batman action figures, the source material really didn't have, you know, Buzz Lightyear getting into some crazy dynamic poses. And so I think this figure just fits in perfectly. As I said at the beginning of the video, I don't have a lot of experience with Beast Kingdom. I just wanted to show them some love. I wanted to kind of throw their name out there because I feel like they're not getting a lot of respect, or just people are not really paying attention to this line. I'm not saying go ahead and pick up every single figure out there, but if you have like an extra 40 to 50 bucks lying around, I definitely feel like you guys should check this line out. And they're going into some crazy new franchises, into some new lines. We have, like I said, some new Disney action figures, whether it's Stitch, whether it's Woody, and now Buzz Lightyear, and the list just goes on and on. I'll try to keep you guys updated if there's any new Beast Kingdom action figures out there that are up for pre-order, and I might circle back around because there were a lot of figures that I didn't talk about in today's video, and I may give them, like I said, just a little bit of a shout out. I just wanted to throw them at you guys in case you guys are interested in trying out something a little bit different, something a little bit unique. But as always, this is just my personal opinion, my personal take. Let me know your thoughts down below. Have you guys ever bought Beast Kingdom action figures? Would you consider trying them out? Very curious to see what the community has to say. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, if you guys enjoy this type of rambling action figure content, well, then make sure to stay tuned because we do this pretty consistently. We're doing this on a daily basis. It's a ton of hard work, but I absolutely love talking action figures with you guys. So let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and as always, make sure to enjoy the hobby. That's the most important part of all this, because if you're not enjoying it, you're just not doing it the right way. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.